My son called me, bragging about the new apartment for his wife Madison, but his next words froze my blood. Dad, you're paying the mortgage because we decided it's your responsibility. I refused, thinking it was a joke, but a $750,000 lawsuit proved to me that it was real. Everything changed when the judge reviewed all the evidence. No one expected that. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. The phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. Its vibration rattled against a chipped mug of coffee gone cold. I glanced at the screen. Ryan, my son, always calling at odd hours. I wiped my hands on a dish towel. The rough fabric caught on my calloused fingers, and I answered. His voice burst through, bright and boasting like he was selling me something. Dad, you won't believe it. We got the penthouse downtown Chicago. Floor-to-ceiling windows. The works. Madison's over the moon. I smiled, leaning against the counter. The image of Ryan in a sleek apartment warmed me despite the January chill seeping through the window. My house, a modest split level in the suburbs, creaked under the weight of fresh snow. That's great, son. Really proud of you two. Yeah, it's a game changer. You gotta see it. He paused, his tone shifting like he was testing the waters. We're thinking of swinging by soon. You know, to celebrate. You'll do something special for us. Right, you always come through. The words hung there, heavier than they should have been. I frowned, my grip tightening on the phone. Something special. Like what? Ryan. He laughed quick and sharp. Oh, you'll figure it out. You always do. Anyway, got to run. Madison's calling me. See you soon. Dad. The line went dead. I stood there staring at the phone, my thumb hovering over the screen. The kitchen felt smaller, the faded wallpaper and scuffed linoleum closing in. Ryan's voice echoed in my head, that edge of expectation I hadn't heard before. Or maybe I had and ignored it. I set the phone down too hard. A photo frame on the shelf wobbled and fell, the glass cracking over a picture of Ryan at 10, gap-toothed and grinning on my shoulders. My chest tightened. I walked to the living room, the floorboards groaning under my steps. The old couch sagged as I sank into it, my eyes drifting to the snow piling up outside. I'd spent years making sure Ryan had everything. College tuition, his first car, even the deposit for his wedding. Each sacrifice felt like a brick in a wall I thought would hold us together. But his words, that casual, you always come through, gnawed at me. What did he mean? I got up restless and started tidying the house. Ryan hadn't visited in months, and the thought of him and Madison here in my cluttered space sparked a mix of pride and unease. I straightened the cushions, dusted the mantel, my hands moving on autopilot. The photo frame lay where it fell, the crack splintering Ryan's smile. I left it there, not ready to touch it. The kettle whistled, and I poured hot water over a tea bag, the steam curling in the dim light. I tried to shake the feeling, telling myself I was overthinking. Ryan was my son. He'd always been a bit flashy. Sure, but he wasn't cruel. Still, I couldn't unhear that tone like he was tallying what I owed him. I sipped the tea, wincing as it burned my tongue, and glanced at the clock. 8 p.m. Too late for a call. Too early for bed. I paced, my socks catching on the worn carpet. The snow kept falling, blanketing the lawn in silence. I stood by the window, my reflection faint in the glass. A 62-year-old man with graying hair and a face carved by years of quiet choices. I thought of Ryan's penthouse, all glass and glamour, and wondered how he'd afforded it. His job as a marketing consultant paid well, but not that well. A flicker of doubt crossed my mind, but I pushed it away. He was my son. I'd raised him to be better. Then I heard it. A low rumble, the crunch of tires on snow. Headlights swept across the lawn. Cutting through the dark, my pulse quickened. Ryan's car. I set the mug down, the tea sloshing over the rim, and moved toward the door. Something was off. A prickle at the back of my neck. But I didn't know how bad it would get. The front door swung open, letting in a gust of icy air and the sound of Ryan's laugh. He stepped inside, his coat dusted with snow, Madison trailing behind like she was walking a runway. Her heels clicked on the hardwood, sharp and deliberate. I forced a smile, my hands still damp from wiping down the counter. Ryan. Madison. Good to see you. I gestured to the living room. Come in. Sit. Tea? Coffee? Madison's lips curved. Not quite a smile. No thanks. Dean, we won't be long. She smoothed her coat, her nails catching the light. Perfect. Blood red. Ryan clapped me on the shoulder too hard and dropped onto the couch like he owned it. Place hasn't changed. Dad. Same old couch. He grinned, but his eyes darted around, taking stock. I caught the edge in his voice, like he was sizing up my life and finding it lacking. I sat across from them, the coffee table between us, its scratched surface holding a tray of untouched cookies. So, tell me about this penthouse. Sounds like a big step. Ryan leaned back, arms spread wide, huge marble counters, skyline views. Madison's already planning the housewarming. He glanced at her and she nodded, her expression cool like she was waiting for her cue. It's stunning, she said, her voice smooth as glass. The kind of place you raise a family in. Right. Ryan, I nodded. My pride for them warring with that nagging unease from Ryan's call must have cost a fortune. You two doing all right with that? Ryan's grin faltered just for a second. Then Madison leaned forward, her purse sliding to the floor with a soft thud. She reached inside and pulled out a glossy folder, the bank's logo gleaming on the cover. My stomach twisted as she set it on the table, her fingers lingering like she was presenting a gift. Dean, she said, her tone clipped. We wanted to talk about the mortgage. I blinked, my hands resting on my knees. The mortgage. Ryan jumped in, his voice louder now. Yeah, Dad. It's a lot. Sure. But you've always had our backs. College, the wedding. You never let us down. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees like he was closing a deal. We figured you'd handle this, too. My mouth went dry. I looked from Ryan to Madison, her eyes locked on mine, unblinking. Handle it, you mean pay it. Madison's smile tightened. It's your responsibility. Dean, you've always been our support. We assumed you'd be happy to help. The room felt too small, the air too thick. My fingers dug into the armrest, the fabric fraying under my grip. You're asking me to pay for your apartment. That's Ryan. That's not how this works. Ryan's face hardened. Not how it works. Dad, we're family. You want us to lose this place after everything you've done for us? His voice rose, accusing like I was the one betraying him. I stood, my knees unsteady. I've given you enough. More than enough. This is your life, not mine. Madison sighed like I was a child throwing a tantrum. She stood, brushing her coat. Think about it. Dean. We'd hate for this to get messy. She nodded at the folder, still on the table, its edges sharp against the wood. Ryan followed her, his jaw tight. You're making a mistake, Dad. Don't say we didn't warn you. He stormed out, the door slamming behind them, the sound echoing like a gunshot. Madison's heels faded into the snow. And then it was just me, the folder, and the silence. I sank back into the chair, my heart pounding. The folder stared up at me, a challenge I hadn't seen coming. Ryan's words, "You've always had our backs," twisted in my head, mocking me. I'd raised him, loved him, given him everything, and this was how he repaid me. The room was dark now, the snow outside glowing under a streetlight. I sat there staring at the folder, my shock burning into something else, something hard and unyielding. They thought I'd roll over, hand them my life savings like I always had. They were wrong. The folder lay open on the table, its pages fanned out like a taunt. I hadn't touched it since Ryan and Madison left, but its presence filled the room, heavy as the snow piling up outside. My hands rested on my thighs, fingers twitching, itching to tear the papers apart. Instead, I sat frozen, the silence of the house pressing against my ears. I thought of Ryan at 18, his eyes bright as I handed him the keys to his first car. I'd worked overtime for months to afford it, my back aching from long shifts at the engineering firm. He'd hugged me, promised he'd make me proud. Now those promises felt like lies, each one a cut deeper than the last. I stood, my chair scraping the floor, and paced the living room, my socks catching on the rug's frayed edge. The folder wasn't just paper, it was a betrayal, calculated and cold. Madison's voice echoed in my head. That polished venom. It's your responsibility. Dean. And Ryan, my own son, backing her up like I was nothing but a bank account. I stopped by the mantel, my eyes landing on the cracked photo frame. Ryan's grin mocked me through the splintered glass. I grabbed it, my thumb brushing the crack, and for a moment, I wanted to hurl it across the room. Instead, I set it down hard, the thud swallowed by the quiet. My mind spiraled back to other moments I'd ignored. The way Ryan had shrugged off paying for his own wedding, saying, "You got this, Dad." The loans I'd co-signed for his failed business, the ones I was still paying off. Each memory was a weight, stacking higher until my chest ached. Had I been blind or just too desperate to believe he'd change, I crossed to the window, the snow now a thick blanket over the lawn. My reflection stared back, a tired man who'd given too much. I thought of my own father, his stern voice warning me to stand up for myself. "Don't let anyone walk over you." "Dean," he'd said. I'd nodded, but never listened. Not when it came to Ryan. I'd wanted to be the father I never had, the one who gave everything. And now here I was staring at a folder that demanded the rest. My hand drifted to the folder, flipping it open, numbers blurred together. $750,000 monthly payments. My name scrawled in a box labeled co-signer. My breath caught. They hadn't just asked. They'd planned this, forged my name, assumed I'd cave. The audacity of it lit something inside me, a spark of anger that burned hotter with every second. I slammed the folder shut, the sound sharp in the stillness. I sank onto the couch, my head in my hands. I'd always thought love meant sacrifice, but this wasn't love. It was theft. Ryan and Madison had taken my trust and twisted it into a weapon. But I wasn't the pushover they thought. Not anymore. The room felt colder now, the radiator's hum barely cutting through the chill. I stood again restless and grabbed my phone from the counter. Its screen was dark, but as I touched it, it lit up with a notification. A social media post from Madison. My thumb hovered, then pressed. Her words appeared bright and cruel, and my blood ran cold. Everything I thought I knew about their betrayal shifted, and I realized this was only the beginning. The phone screen glowed in the dark, Madison's post searing into my eyes like a brand. "Some people forget family when money's involved," she wrote, a winking emoji punctuating the jab. Below Ryan's comment, "Guess Dad's too selfish to help us build a future." The words twisted in my gut, each one a betrayal sharper than the last. I scrolled, my thumb trembling as likes and comments piled up. Strangers, neighbors, even old colleagues piling on. "Ungrateful old man," one said. "What kind of father does that?" Another sneered. My face burned, the shame hot and suffocating. I dropped the phone onto the couch, its thud swallowed by the quiet of my living room. The folder from Ryan and Madison still sat on the table, its glossy edges catching the lamplight. I paced, my socks scuffing the worn rug, my mind racing. They hadn't just demanded my money. They'd turned my life into a spectacle, painting me as the villain to their glittering story. I thought of the years I'd spent building a reputation. Steady, reliable Dean, the guy who'd fix your car or cover your shift. Now it was crumbling one post at a time. The room felt too small, the air too thick. I grabbed my coat, needing to move, to breathe, but a sharp knock at the door stopped me. I froze, my hand on the doorknob. Another knock, insistent. I opened it to find Patricia, my neighbor, her gray hair tucked under a wool cap, a plate of cookies in her hands. Her eyes, sharp behind her glasses, told me she wasn't here for pleasantries. "Dean, I saw that nonsense online," she said, stepping inside without waiting for an invite. Her voice was low, crackling with indignation. "Those two parading their lies for the world to see. It's disgusting." I shut the door, the cold air lingering in the hall. "You saw it." "Huh," I muttered, setting the cookies on the counter. The smell of sugar and vanilla clashed with the bitterness in my chest. Everyone's seen it. Patricia's glasses slipped down her nose as she leaned forward. Madison's got half of Chicago eating out of her hand. But I know better. Ryan's no saint either. I've heard things. Debts, shady deals. They're not as perfect as they pretend. I raised an eyebrow, my pulse quickening. "What kind of things?" She waved a hand, her rings glinting. "Enough to know they're in over their heads. I can't stand by and watch them drag you through the mud." "Dean, you've been good to this neighborhood, to Ryan, to everyone. Let me help." Her words cut through the fog in my head, a lifeline I hadn't expected. I sank into a chair, the wood creaking under me. I don't even know where to start. "Patricia, they've got everyone fooled. Not everyone." She sat across from me, her eyes steady. "You're not alone in this. I've got a friend, sharp as a tack, knows how to dig into financials. We'll figure out what they're hiding." I nodded, the weight in my chest shifting. Not gone, but lighter. Patricia's fire, her refusal to let this slide, sparked something in me. I wasn't just a target anymore. I picked up my phone, the screen still glowing with Madison's post. My thumb hovered over the app. But instead of scrolling, I opened my messages. A thread with Ryan caught my eye. Buried months back, I clicked it, my breath catching as I read his words from last year. Casual and careless. Just sign the papers. Dad, it's for the business. No big deal. The room seemed to tilt. Those papers, had they been the start of this? My fingers tightened around the phone, the plastic creaking. Patricia was still talking, her voice a steady hum. But I barely heard her. That message, those words, they were a crack in Ryan's armor, a clue I hadn't seen before. Maybe, just maybe, I'd found a way to fight back. The kitchen smelled of chamomile tea, the steam curling from Patricia's cracked mug as she leaned over my table, her eyes scanning Ryan's old message on my phone. Just sign the papers. Dad. It read the words as smug now as they'd been a year ago. I pushed the phone toward her, my chair scraping the linoleum. The folder from Ryan and Madison still sat in the living room. But it wasn't the one I needed now. This was before the wedding, I said, my voice low. He said it was for his business, some marketing deal. I signed without reading. Stupid, I know. Patricia's lips pursed, her glasses catching the light. Not stupid. Dean, trusting. But they used that trust like a weapon. She sipped her tea, then set the mug down with a clink. I've heard rumors about Ryan's finances. Fancy dinners, new cars, but no money to back it up. Madison's no better, posting about her perfect life while dodging questions about her job. I leaned back, my hands clasped tight to keep them still. The kitchen felt smaller, the walls crowding in with memories of Ryan's promises. I'd co-signed loans, paid off his debts, always believing he'd grow into the man I raised him to be. But Patricia's words, sharp and certain, cut through that fog. Ryan and Madison weren't untouchable. They had weaknesses. His obsession with status, her fear of losing face. I could use that. Patricia, you said your friend could dig into their finances, I asked, my voice steadier now. She nodded, a glint in her eye. Mike's retired, but he's a bloodhound with numbers. Used to catch corporate fraud for a living. I'll call him tomorrow. Get him on this. She tapped the table, her rings clicking. But you need to think. Dean, what's your endgame? You can't just sit back and take this. I stood restless and crossed to the sink, staring at the snow-crusted window. My reflection stared back, older, harder. They thought I'd break, I said, half to myself. They thought I'd hand over everything because I always have. But I'm done being their safety net. Patricia's chair creaked as she stood, her hand brushing my arm. That's the Dean I know, the one who rebuilt my porch after that storm. No questions asked. You're tougher than they think. Her words settled in me, solid as stone. I turned, meeting her gaze. I'll start by figuring out what those papers were. If Ryan lied about the business, there's more he's hiding. And Madison, she's all image. One crack in that facade and she'll crumble. Patricia grinned, a spark of mischief in her eyes. Now you're talking. I'll get Mike to look into their accounts. You check your records. Anything. Receipts, emails, old contracts. They've underestimated you, Dean, but we'll show them. I nodded, my jaw tight. The idea of fighting back, of turning their own game against them, sent a thrill through me. I crossed to the hall, my steps purposeful, and opened the closet. inside. Buried under coats and boxes was an old dresser I hadn't touched in years. I yanked open the bottom drawer, the wood screeching, and found it. A dusty folder stuffed with papers from Ryan's business days. My fingers brushed the brittle edges, the smell of mildew sharp in the air. I carried the folder to the kitchen. Setting it on the table, Patricia watched, her mug forgotten. I flipped it open, scanning the faded ink. Contracts, loan agreements, Ryan's scrawled signature next to mine. My eyes caught on a line, a name I didn't recognize, tied to a bank I'd never heard of. My pulse quickened. "Patricia," I said, my voice low. "I think I found something." The private detective's office smelled of stale coffee and ink, the kind of place where secrets went to be unearthed. I sat across from Mike, Patricia's friend, his desk a chaos of papers and sticky notes. The folder I'd found in the dresser lay between us, its contents now in his hands. My fingers tapped the armrest, the vinyl creaking under my grip. Outside, Chicago streets buzzed with early February traffic, but in here, it was just me, Mike, and the truth I needed. Mike adjusted his glasses, his eyes scanning a page. "Ryan's been sloppy," he said, his voice gravelly. "These business papers, half of them are tied to shell companies, the other half to loans he never repaid. And Madison, she's been padding her resume with fake references, got her that cushy PR job with lies." I leaned forward, my pulse racing. "Can you prove it?" He smirked, flipping the folder shut. "Already did. Found records of Ryan's debts over $250,000 tied to bad investments. Madison's references. I tracked down the clients. They don't exist." He slid a printout across the desk. Numbers and names in stark black ink. "You've got leverage, Dean. Question is, what do you do with it?" I took the printout, my hands steady despite the fire in my chest. Ryan and Madison had built their lives on sand, and I was about to kick it out from under them. "I want to expose them," I said, my voice low. "But not as me." "Not yet," Mike nodded, leaning back. "Smart. Hit them where it hurts. Their reputation. I can get you an encrypted email account, untraceable. Send a tip to their circle. Let the gossip do the rest." I left his office with the printout tucked in my coat, the city's cold biting my face. Back home, I fired up my old laptop, its fan whirring like a warning. The living room was dark, the folder from Ryan and Madison still on the table, a reminder of their betrayal. I opened a new email, my fingers hovering over the keys. Mike had set up the account. Anonymous. Clean. I typed each word sharp and deliberate. "Ryan and Madison aren't who you think. Ask about his debts. Check her references." I signed it. A friend. My lips curling at the irony. The cursor blinked over the send button. I thought of Madison's smug post, Ryan's accusing comment, the way they turned my life into a punching bag. This email wouldn't destroy them, but it would plant a seed, a crack in their perfect facade. My finger pressed down. The screen flashed as the message vanished into the ether. A rush hit me. Not joy, but something closer to power. For the first time, I was fighting back. I leaned back, the laptop's glow casting shadows on the wall. The house was quiet, the snow outside muffling the world. I imagined Ryan and Madison opening that email, their faces paling as their lies unraveled. They'd underestimated me, thought I'd crumble under their demands. They were wrong. My phone buzzed on the table, shattering the silence. I grabbed it. my heart skipping as Mike's name flashed on the screen. I answered, his voice cutting through the line. Dean, I dug deeper into those shell companies, found something bigger, way bigger. You sitting down, I gripped the phone, my eyes on the laptop, its screen still open to the sent email. His words froze me. A new door opening in a fight. I thought I understood. The cafe hummed with life, the clatter of cups and low chatter wrapping around me like a shield. I sat across from Patricia, a notepad between us, its pages scrawled with my hurried notes. Names, dates, fragments of what Mike, the detective, had uncovered. The smell of fresh coffee hung in the air, sharp against the February chill seeping through the window. My laptop sat closed, its weight a reminder of the email I'd sent. The first crack in Ryan and Madison's facade. But Mike's call last night had promised something bigger, and I could feel it. The tide turning, Patricia sipped her latte, her eyes scanning my notes. So Mike says Ryan's tied to a shell company, she asked, her voice low, almost drowned by the espresso machine's hiss. And Madison's job is hanging by a thread. I nodded, tapping the pen against the notepad. He found transactions. Money funneled through fake accounts. Ryan signed my name on some of them years back. I thought they were for his business. My jaw tightened, the memory stinging. He'd come over, all smiles, saying it was a sure thing. I trusted him. Patricia's hand reached across the table, her rings catching the light. You loved him. Dean, that's not a crime. Her voice was soft but firm, like she was anchoring me. What matters is what you do now. I leaned back, the wooden chair creaking. The cafe's warmth couldn't touch the cold knot in my chest. I thought of those papers, the ones I'd signed without reading, Ryan's hand on my shoulder, his promises of big things. Each one was a lie, a brick in the wall he'd built to trap me. But now those same papers were my weapon. Mike's digging deeper. I said, if we can prove fraud, it's not just their reputation, it's legal trouble. Patricia's eyes lit up, a spark of mischief. That's my Dean. Hit them where it hurts. She pulled out her phone, scrolling. I know a lawyer. Laura, she's sharp. Used to handle cases like this. She'll know if those signatures hold up in court. I scribbled Laura's name, the pen digging into the paper. My plan was taking shape. Not just exposing Ryan and Madison, but dismantling their world piece by piece. Ryan cared about status, Madison about her image. I'd strip both away, using their own lies against them. But I had to be careful, precise. One wrong move and they'd turn it back on me. The waitress passed, her tray clinking, and I glanced out the window. Chicago streets bustled, people hurrying through the snow. I imagined Ryan and Madison in their penthouse, oblivious to the noose tightening. The thought sent a thrill through me. Not joy, but purpose. I looked at Patricia, her face lined with years of her own battles, and felt a warmth I hadn't expected. She wasn't just a neighbor anymore. She was a partner, someone who saw me, not as the selfish old man Madison had painted. Patricia, I said, my voice steady. They made a mistake underestimating me. These documents, they're their downfall. She grinned, raising her cup like a toast. To their mistake, then, and to you showing them what Dean's made of. I smiled, the first real one in weeks, and flipped the notepad to a fresh page. We talked strategy, more evidence, more witnesses, every angle covered. The cafe faded, the noise a distant hum as I focused. my pen flying. Ryan and Madison thought they'd won with their social media stunts. Their demands, they were wrong. My phone buzzed, shattering the moment. I grabbed it, my pulse spiking as Ryan's name flashed on the screen. A text short and sharp. "Back off, Dad, or you'll regret it." The words hit like a slap, but I didn't flinch. I set the phone down, my eyes meeting Patricia's. She raised an eyebrow, waiting. My heart raced, not with fear, but with clarity. He knew I was fighting back. Good. The envelope sat on my kitchen counter, its crisp white paper glaring under the fluorescent light. My name was typed in bold, the law firm's logo embossed in the corner. I didn't need to open it to know what it was. Ryan and Madison's next move. My hand stayed steady as I slid it open, the paper tearing cleanly. The words jumped out. Lawsuit $750,000. Breach of verbal agreement. They claimed I promised to pay their mortgage that I backed out, leaving them financially devastated. The audacity of it burned. But I didn't crumble. Not this time. I grabbed my keys and drove to Patricia's, the snow crunching under my tires. Her house glowed in the dusk, a beacon of warmth against the gray. I knocked, the door creaking open to reveal her in a flour-dusted apron, the smell of fresh bread wafting out. "Dean, you look like you've seen a ghost," she said, ushering me in. "Not a ghost," I said, handing her the letter. "A lawsuit." She scanned it, her glasses slipping down her nose. 750,000. They're out of their minds. Her voice rose sharp with outrage as she tossed the letter onto her kitchen table. The old radio hummed in the background, a soft jazz tune clashing with her fury. "They think they can bully you into this." I sank into a chair, the wood warm from the oven's heat. "They think I'll fold like always." My voice was calm, but my mind raced. The lawsuit was a desperate play, proof they felt my email's ripples. I thought of the old letters I'd kept, tucked in a shoebox in my closet. Ryan's promises, his signatures, his lies. "I've got something they don't expect," I said, leaning forward. "Letters from Ryan begging for money, promising to pay me back. They contradict this verbal agreement nonsense." Patricia's eyes widened, a grin spreading. "You kept them, Dean. You're a genius." She crossed to the counter, grabbing her phone. "Laura needs to see this. She'll tear their case apart." I nodded, my fingers tapping the table. The lawsuit was a blow, but it was also an opening. Ryan and Madison were cocky, thinking their money and charm would win, but I'd learned their game. Every move calculated, every word a trap. I wouldn't just defend myself. I'd turn their attack into their undoing. Patricia paced, her slippers scuffing the floor. "Madison's been posting again," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. All smiles, crowing about justice. "She's got no idea what's coming." "Let her post," I said, my jaw tight. Every lie they tell makes the fall harder. I stood restless and crossed to the window. Her yard was blanketed in snow, the streetlights casting long shadows. I thought of my house, the folder, the cracked photo of Ryan. Each piece of my past was now a weapon, and I'd use them all. Patricia hung up with Laura, her face triumphant. "She's free tomorrow. Bring those letters." "Dean, this lawsuit's their last mistake." I nodded, the weight of the letter lifting, replaced by a fire I hadn't felt in years. I left her house, the cold biting my face as I climbed into my car. The engine rumbled and I pulled onto the street, my mind sharp. Then I saw her. Madison, strolling down the sidewalk, her coat pristine, her smile smug as she glanced at her phone. The sight of her, so sure of her victory, sent a jolt through me. She didn't see me, didn't know I was watching, but she would soon. The lawyer's office towered over downtown Chicago, its glass walls reflecting the March sky. I sat across from Laura, Patricia's friend, her desk a fortress of files and legal pads. My shoebox of letters lay open, Ryan's handwriting spilling out. Promises, excuses, debts unpaid. Laura's pen moved fast, her eyes sharp as she read. These are gold. Dean, she said, her voice crisp. They show Ryan's pattern of manipulation. No jury will buy their verbal agreement story. I leaned back, the leather chair creaking. So, we can fight this. She smiled, a glint in her eye. We'll bury them. She tapped a letter dated 3 years back, this one where he begs for a loan and promises to repay. It's dated before their so-called agreement. Their case is flimsy, built on bluster. My chest loosened, a weight lifting. The office's hum, phones ringing. Footsteps outside faded as I focused. Mike's evidence, the letters, my own testimony. It was enough. Not just to win, but to expose Ryan and Madison for what they were. I thought of their penthouse, their smug smiles, and felt a surge of resolve. This wasn't just about money. It was about my name, my dignity, everything I'd built. That evening, I sat in Patricia's living room, a mug of tea warming my hands. Her old lamp cast a soft glow, the plaid blanket on her couch, a comfort against the storm outside. We'd spent hours talking strategy, but now the conversation turned personal. I fought my own battles. You know, she said, her voice quiet. Lost my husband young, raised 2 kids alone. People said I'd break. I didn't. I looked at her, the lines on her face telling stories I hadn't asked about. You're tougher than most. Patricia, I meant it. Her strength, her loyalty, it grounded me, made this fight feel bigger than just me. She laughed, a warm sound. And you're stubborn as a mule, Dean. That's why you'll win. She refilled my mug, the kettle steam curling between us. You're not just fighting for yourself. It's for everyone who's been used, taken for granted. Her words hit deep, resonating with the part of me that had given too much too long. I thought of my years supporting Ryan, late nights at the firm, scrimping for his tuition, believing it would matter. Now I was fighting for the man I'd been, the one who deserved better. I pulled out my notepad, reviewing the evidence, Mike's financial records, the letters, a timeline of Ryan's lies. Laura would present it all clean and devastating. I imagined the courtroom, Ryan's face when the truth came out, Madison's polish cracking. The thought didn't thrill me. It steadied me. Justice wasn't loud. It was methodical, relentless. Patricia stood, stretching. Get some rest. Dean, big days ahead. I nodded, gathering my things, the notepad heavy in my hand. I stepped outside, the snow lighter now, the air sharp. I was halfway to my car when my phone buzzed. Ryan's name flashed and I answered, my pulse steady. His voice was smooth, too smooth. Dad, let's settle this quietly. No need for court. Right, I stood by the lawyer's building, the city's lights blurring around me. His words were a trap, cloaked in calm. I gripped the phone, my voice low. We'll see about that, son. The courthouse loomed over me, its gray stone facade cold against the April wind that whipped through downtown Chicago. I stood on the steps, the folder of evidence heavy in my hands, its edges worn from weeks of handling. My tie felt too tight, the knot a reminder of the fight ahead. Patricia stood beside me, her scarf fluttering, her hand brushing my arm. "You've got this." "Dean," she murmured, her voice steady. "They don't stand a chance." I nodded, my eyes fixed on the street. Cars honked, pedestrians hurried past, but everything slowed when I saw them. Ryan and Madison striding toward me. Ryan's coat was unbuttoned, his face flushed, while Madison's heels clicked with forced confidence, her scarf pulled tight. Their eyes met mine, and for a moment, I saw it. Nervousness, a crack in their polished armor. "Dad!" Ryan started, his voice loud, like he was performing for the crowd. "Let's end this now. No court, no mess. Pay half the mortgage, and we'll call it even." He stepped closer, his breath visible in the chill. "You don't want this dragged out, do you?" Madison nodded, her lips a thin line. "It's reasonable, Dean. You've always helped us. One last time and we're done." Her eyes flicked to the folder in my hands, and I caught a flicker of unease. I stood taller, the folder a shield against their words. "You think you can scare me into this?" My voice was low, steady, cutting through the wind. "You chose this fight. Ryan, you and Madison. Now you'll face the truth." Ryan's jaw tightened, his hands balling into fists. "You're making a mistake, Dad. This will ruin you." His voice cracked, betraying the bravado. Madison touched his arm, her voice sharp. "Let's go. Ryan, he's too stubborn to see sense." But her eyes lingered on me, and I saw the doubt, the fear that their plan was unraveling. Patricia stepped forward, her voice like steel. "You heard him. Take your lies inside or walk away." "Either way." "Dean's ready." Ryan glared, but Madison pulled him back, her heels scraping the pavement. They turned, whispering to each other, their heads close. I watched them go, my heart pounding, not with fear, but with clarity. The letters, Mike's financial records, Laura's strategy. They were my arsenal, and I was armed to the teeth. I thought of Ryan's old promises scrawled in the letters I'd kept, each one a lie that would now bury him. Madison's fake references, her brittle image. They'd crumble under scrutiny. "Dean," Patricia said, her hand on my shoulder, "you're not just fighting for you. You're fighting for everyone they've hurt." Her words settled in me, heavy and true. I wasn't just a father betrayed. I was a man reclaiming his worth. I adjusted the folder, its weight grounding me. The courthouse doors loomed ahead, their brass handles glinting in the weak sun. I took a step, then another, Patricia at my side. The crowd parted, their murmurs a distant hum. I reached the doors, my hand on the handle when I glanced back. Madison was watching me, her face pale, whispering furiously to Ryan. Her eyes locked with mine, and I saw it. Panic. Raw and unguarded, I turned away, pushing the door open, the folder pulsing in my hands like a heartbeat. The courtroom smelled of polished wood and tension, the air thick with the weight of every word. I sat on the hard bench, my hands clasped, the folder of evidence open on the table before Laura. My lawyer. Her voice cut through the room sharp and precise as she presented the letters. Ryan's scrawled promises, his pleas for money, each one a nail in their case. Behind me, Patricia's presence was a quiet strength, her hand brushing mine when Laura laid out Mike's financial records, exposing Ryan's debts and Madison's fake references. The judge, a stern woman with silver hair, leaned forward, her glasses catching the light. "These documents," she said, her voice like gravel, "paint a very different picture than the plaintiff's claims." She held up one of Ryan's letters, its edges yellowed. "No evidence supports this alleged verbal agreement." Across the room, Ryan shifted, his face red, his tie askew. Madison sat rigid, her knuckles white around her purse, her eyes darting to the exit. Their lawyer stammered, papers slipping from his hands. But Laura pressed on relentless. "My client Dean was manipulated," she said, pointing to the financial records. "The plaintiff's debts and fabrications show a pattern of deceit, not entitlement." I kept my eyes on the judge, my heart steady. Each piece of evidence was a brick in the wall I'd built, not to hide behind, but to stand on. I thought of the nights I'd spent poring over those letters, the years I believed Ryan's promises, the betrayal that had carved me into someone new. Patricia's hand squeezed mine, her breath soft. "You're almost there," she whispered. The judge's gavel cracked, silencing the room. "I've heard enough," she said. "The plaintiff's claim is baseless. The lawsuit is dismissed." Her words hit like a wave, washing away the weight of months. The room buzzed, whispers rising. But I sat still, the folder before me, a silent victory. Justice wasn't loud. It was this, the quiet truth laid bare. Laura turned, her smile tight, but triumphant. "We did it, Dean." I nodded, my throat tight. Not with tears, but with something deeper. Relief. Vindication. Patricia hugged me, her scarf brushing my cheek. "I knew you'd win," she said, her voice warm. "You showed them." I glanced at Ryan and Madison. Ryan's head was bowed, his hands gripping the table while Madison stared at the floor, her purse forgotten in her lap. Their lawyer muttered something, but they didn't respond. I should have felt joy, but it was heavier, like closing a book I'd never wanted to read. They'd lost not just the case, but the mask they'd worn for years. The judge rose, the room emptying, but I lingered, gathering the folder. Its pages were my shield, my sword, my proof. I stood, Patricia at my side, and headed for the exit. The hallway was crowded, the air cooler, but I stopped short. Ryan stood by the door, his silhouette sharp against the light. He turned, his eyes meeting mine, heavy with something I couldn't name. Madison was beside him, whispering, her face tight. I gripped the folder, my steps slow, knowing this wasn't over yet. The courthouse steps were cold under the fading light, the Chicago skyline sharp against the dusk. I stood with Patricia, the folder tucked under my arm, its weight now a comfort, a relic of a battle won. The crowd had thinned, but Ryan and Madison lingered nearby, their figures small against the stone. They approached, hesitant, like children caught in a lie. Ryan's hat was crumpled in his hands. Madison's purse clutched tight, her eyes fixed on the ground. "Dad," Ryan started, his voice low, trembling. "We were wrong. I'm sorry. We got carried away. Thought you'd—" He faltered, glancing at Madison, who nodded, her lips tight. "It was a mistake, Dean," she said, her voice stripped of its usual polish. We didn't mean for it to go this far. Can we just move past this? Her eyes flicked up, pleading, but they lacked the fire I'd once feared. I looked at them. My son and his wife, their faces pale. Their world cracked open. The courtroom had stripped them bare. Ryan's debts, Madison's lies, their greed laid out for all to see. Friends had turned away. Their social media silent, their penthouse a hollow trophy. I should have felt pity, but I didn't. They'd chosen this every step. You lost more than a lawsuit, I said, my voice steady, cutting through the evening chill. You lost me. You built this mess, and you'll live with it. I stepped closer, the folder firm in my grip. Don't come to me for forgiveness. You don't get to rewrite this story. Ryan's shoulders slumped, his hat slipping from his hands. Madison's eyes dropped, her purse a shield she couldn't hide behind. They turned, their steps uneven, and disappeared into the crowd. I watched them go, the weight of years lifting, not with joy, but with finality. I'd given them everything once. Now I was free. Patricia touched my arm, her smile soft. You were stronger than they ever knew, she said, her scarf catching the breeze. Come on, let's celebrate. We drove to her house, the city lights blurring past. Her living room welcomed me, its old couch sagging, the smell of coffee rich in the air. We sat, mugs in hand, planning a trip, maybe the coast, maybe farther, a new adventure for two people who'd fought and won. Patricia laughed, her stories of past travels mixing with mine, our voices weaving a future I hadn't dared imagine. You know, she said, setting her mug down, this win, it's not just yours. It's for everyone who's been taken for granted, who's had to fight to be seen. Her eyes sparkled, and I saw her not just as a friend, but as a partner in this new chapter. I nodded, my chest warm to new beginnings. Then we clinked mugs, the sound bright in the quiet. The folder sat on her table, a closed book, its story done. I thought of the years I'd given Ryan, the sacrifices that had shaped me, and now this justice, not just for me, but for the man I'd become. Later, I stepped onto Patricia's porch, the night crisp, the sky a canvas of stars. I sat on the steps, my coat loose, and looked up. Each star was a possibility, a road I hadn't walked yet. For the first time in years, I felt it, peace, sharp, and clear like the air in my lungs. The future was mine, and it was bright. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt tales, share your impressions in the comments below. What moved you most about Dean's fight for justice? Feel free to ask questions, so we can discuss and exchange ideas together. Your thoughts help us interact and grow as a community. For the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.